And there'll be opportunity as well.
That was the last.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to.
Yep, so that's a good reminder for me. So strength is something good about the community right now. Weakness is something that's a challenge for the community right now. Opportunity is a future strength that hasn't been capitalized on yet, and threat is a future weakness. So right now, today, our strongest strengths are community, parks and trails, lowish taxes, and health safety.
And my only other argument would be Southwood as a current strength. I mean, we have, aside from the tax base issue that we have on the businesses that are coming house in South Point. You know, South Point is a huge, it's like Pittsburgh South. You know, it's a huge pool for people to put their businesses outside of the city. It's convenient for people to, you know, put their headquarters here.
Yeah, so I want to spend a couple minutes talking about that because from my perspective, it seems unique or not what I anticipated that that was not identified as a priority. Not because I think it's a strength, that if you think it's a weakness, identify it as a priority weakness. My point being that South Point has a huge impact on Cecil.
Yes.
Good, bad, or indifferent. So I think this committee needs to identify that as a priority.
Yes.
Now we can talk about, is it a strength? There must have been a reason why in our discussion last time, and even in the first 10 minutes of this discussion, nobody identified South Point as a strength. Is it a weakness? You know, it's not an opportunity because it's there.
It's the taxes right now.
It's on here number 6 right now.
I know, but we didn't star it as one of the high ones, and we're not going to star everything. Otherwise, there's no point in starring it. So.
I would like to say one thing. Our municipal taxes have not increased since 1995, and that's because of South Point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a big strength, but I also think it's a weakness because a lot of people feel that all of the development and everything there is taking away from things being done in other communities because they feel that all the attention's there.
Well, we need development in other parts of our community, but I agree and disagree with what you're saying.
And I also say that I believe some of that area is slide prone. So we have to watch that because if there is I see somebody Hilton Garden Inn sliding, if that would ever happen, it would be a huge cost.
So is South Point a high priority strength? Do we need to add it to the weakness list?
I think there's pros and cons to every development, so I don't know how it weighs out. We should actually.
I know, but again, to put a finer point on it, Cecil will not be Cecil that it is today without South Point. It's sort of striking to me that we haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about South Point, and maybe you're sick of talking about South Point, and you feel like South Point has overshadowed what Cecil Township is. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what South Point means to this community. But you can't just ignore it. I think it'd be short-sighted on
I
it.
think it's a strength, but it does not have a Cecil Township address.
Yeah, it doesn't have an identity. It's just
Okay.
Cecil Township.
And it's,
Because 90% of the people think it's Canterbury.
Right.
Because of the,
Yeah.
Every time it's in the news, it's Canonsburg.
Yeah.
Right.
so it's
Except when they shoot somebody.
it's certainly, I mean, South Point is South Point. It's, like you said, Cecil wouldn't be Cecil as it is now without South Point.
It's a
But
village.
what is our, South Point seems already have its plan and destiny kind of written for it. We're trying to figure out, I get the feeling like, just my interactions in the last 10 years, that we're trying to figure out what the rest of Cecil Township is going to be, because South Point is South Point. And there's not much we're going to do to impact or change the character of South Point. I mean,
Good point.
That's right.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong.
it's built out, and the property owners association already manage so many different aspects of it for their own purposes. There's very little that.
It's an asset, but it's built out.
Right.
Is it
It's also
totally
been a
built? Is
burden.
that- I don't think.
Yeah,
I think there's some-
99% or whatever.
It's been a
And
burden
correct
on
me-
us.
Go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know anything about this, but I know that, and perhaps you or Elizabeth, who, you know, were part of this when it was all developed, what kind of, they got a tax break for opening a business in South Point, and it was a 10-year,
That's a LERTA program, and I think that's a statewide.
It's a state law that you can do that. You have to designate an area.
it's only for 5
It
years.
was only 1 year to the township, and it was prorated after that, and I'm not sure they did it that way. If you go 2 days ago, was that Sunday? Or, yeah, Sunday, there was an actual South Point 25 years after Observer. And when I read that abatement, if he's
That's what I was
correct,
talking about.
I don't think we've been getting the right money.
That's what I'm talking about.
Did
That's
you
what
see
I'm,
that?
that's what I mean, like, I don't know.
What's the state line? You can,
There's two different abatements, one for our township per se and one for the county. I
one for
guess I should.
the county's
Yeah, and-
100%.
and ours is
The township
prorated.
and the school is 20, 40, 68.
Yeah, yeah.
Band is 100%, only on new construction to start work. But there's going to be that new proposed development adjacent something.
Coal
So,
Valley.
Coal
Coal
Valley.
Valley.
So
Full Valley
that
will
you have that
overshadow
in
South
here.
Point.
By the way, that's not Coal Valley, it's Cool Valley.
Cool Valley.
In fact, that's the whole big unknown, it's
And
a
that's what
huge
you're talking
undeveloped
about,
area.
guys.
Right.
They said in here 900
Oh,
acres.
it's-
but that's
it's-
only
Definitely
11,000.
It's called,
And you're gonna add all that traffic,
It's
that's gonna be no
1100.
traffic lights over there anywhere.
Although I'll tell you,
it's called Cool
Hold on.
Valley because
Guardrails are growing up.
Okay.
So we were talking about South Point. Is that a priority for this community? Sounds like yes, but we're a little bit uncomfortable pegging it as a strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat. But we don't want to set it aside and not spend time talking about it in detail.
As it stands now, South Point is completely built out. There's no place for them to go. So is it a priority now? No, I don't think
It's a
so.
strength.
I think Cool Valley is going to be
Your
the
strength.
priority, and they're gonna have to really be careful how they're doing it.
Clear Road.
Well, yes,
Yeah,
they're-
Clear Road.
I'm gonna say, South Point is built out. They cannot expand anymore.
I think there's 2 lots left.
But
They're already bought. They're already bought.
Yeah,
Other
when I
than-
started, they were done
other than the-
in South Point too.
Other than the other side of Crown Castle.
That's it.
And I will not
Include
sell that
yourself
property
into
to a
some-
housing plan.
this plan does, though, need to guide, South Point's going to evolve in the lifetime of this plan for the next 10 years in some way or another. They're going to try to redevelop, infill, demolish a building and put up high-rise apartments. You never know. So, and also, it's sort of like the 500-pound gorilla. We can't just say it's built out, we're going to let it go. Because if you ignore it, you might cannibalize it. Pool Valley, everything moves over to Pool Valley, and now your tax base just shifted from one place to the other and put strains on your infrastructure. So we need to look at it. So I highlight it as a priority, but we need to spend some time talking about it separately, not necessarily a strength.
One other thing to add to that. How many empty buildings are in South Point right now? How many of them have either for sale signs on them or for rent?
Yeah, you're-
Because the offices moved out,
oil, gas. and-
industry moved out, oil and gas is starting to move out.
They're gone already, most of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable, the empty space over there in South Point.
Right, so to not talk about that would be a little short-sighted because there's lots of communities, and I don't like to name names, but in western Pennsylvania, who have a glut of office space and found themselves 20 years later looking back saying, maybe we should have made some different decisions and tried to vary our land uses so that we can vary our tax base and capitalize on markets as they ebb and flow. So, perfect, Darlene, exactly the point. We'll make it a priority, and we're going to move on. I'll footnote that and talk about it either at the end of this meeting or at a future meeting in more detail. Yes, sir.
My point is, a lot of this is opinion, but you can't tell me, or I've never had that information in front of me. South Point pulls in 1 million a year, but it takes 1.5 million in services. That's what I think to make a decision. Police and fire and EMS are up there all the time, and nobody volunteers for them. We're volunteer fire department. It's a drain on our system, those are the kind of things you want to say, is it a pro or is it a con? That's what I need to know to make an honest evaluation of, is it good or bad? It's good for some people who are making money, it's not good for the guys who live here all their lives and are jumping in the truck and bringing money to the fire department.
When I was tax collector, I had to do a calculation for the county, and that's 1/4 of our tax base. For the school, that's not what we collected. It's 1/4.
That's
That's what it
For
was,
the
because
schools.
they're all, no, for the township too, they're all off of Garden now.
So in communities that are like a community, for example, that has a big shopping mall in it or an outlet mall, and that's their biggest source of income in terms of tax base, you do worry about, especially in the retail world, changes, how that is going to affect the tax base. So, okay, let's move on to weaknesses, because we got other stuff to talk about tonight. Weaknesses, development, perception, management and leadership, water and sewer infrastructure, road infrastructure, and no public transportation. We flag management and leadership water and sewer infrastructure and road infrastructure as priorities. Yes? Any other weaknesses?